everyone, Kristina here. Welcome to another video for SimonsSaysStamp.com. Today I'm going to be using the October 2017 card kit, and there is a ton of awesome products in this card kit, including an adhesive, an embossing pen, embossing powder, a steel die, some pattern paper, stamp set, and cardstock. This is packed with fun stuff to use. So I'm first going to pick out a pattern paper to use, and I'm actually going to be creating two cards today. The first card is going to have some very simple stamping and some use of pattern paper. And in the second card, it's going to be a one-layer card with just stamping. So for the first card, I'm going to use the soft navy cardstock that's included in the kit as the card base. And then I'm cutting down some pattern paper. And I'm cutting this down to 3 3/4 wide by 4 3/4 tall. So basically 3/4 of an inch smaller on each dimension than a standard size card. So I'm going to pick out a nice pink ink color that matches the pink shades of this pattern paper. These were the three that I was considering, and I decided to go with Rosy Cheeks. It is the darkest of the three that I've chosen from, but I wanted to use the dark pink because I wanted it to be a really intense pop of color, but have it still relate to the pattern paper. You could use either of the other two colors, those would look just as well, but I decided to go with Rosy Cheeks. So I've taken one of the kind of brush stroke images from the stamp set, and the stamp set is called Brush Stroke Messages, and I actually designed this stamp set for use with the sentiments in the kit or in the stamp set. So this brush stroke image is perfectly sized to have a couple of the greetings put on top. So I'm going to be embossing one of the greetings, and I want to make sure that the embossing powder doesn't stick to that inked area. I heat set it to make sure it kind of sped up the drying process. And now I've put a nice thick coat of powder tulle on top, and I'm going to test it with the embossing powder that I'll be using without stamping. This is just to test it to make sure that everything is nice and dry and it's not going to have embossing powder sticking to the entire image. So I'm prepping it once again with that powder tool just to be safe. And then I'm going to pick out a stamp from the stamp set. I'm using this greeting here that says, "Just wanted to say you're amazing." And I'm placing it down onto that area. And then I'm going to swing the door of my mini Misty stamp positioning tool, and I'm going to pick that up. I'm going to put that piece down in the bottom corner again. And I'll be inking it up with a Versamark ink. I forgot to mention that the cream color of cardstock that I'm using is actually the Simons Stamp cream cardstock that is included in the kit as well. So I'm stamping this down just with that Versamark ink. And then I'm going to take that blue embossing powder. This is the embossing powder that comes in the kit as well. This is called Steel Navy, and it's a nice blue color. Once you have it melted, it has a little bit of a shiny blue cast to it, kind of like a pearlescent finish. It's really, really pretty. For any embossing powder that sticks to areas where you don't want it, you can use a dry paintbrush just to wipe that away. And then I used my heat tool to heat set that till it was smooth and melted. You can kind of see that brighter blue pearlescent sheen as well. I then took my Versamark pad and I inked up the edges of this piece. It's going to go on top of some pattern paper, and the main background color on the pattern paper is also cream, so I thought it would just kind of get lost right on top, so I thought it would be best to add a border to it. So I'm sprinkling on that same blue embossing powder. And this is just going to give it a really kind of rustic edge. I don't want it to be a perfect line, although you could if you wanted to, but I thought it sort of mimicked the raw edges of that brush stroke stamp. So I'll heat set the edges with that embossing powder once again, and once it's smooth and melted, I can set that aside and work on the rest of the card. By the way, I used a coffee filter to catch that embossing powder. It makes for a really easy cleanup. So now I'm back to that blue cardstock that I cut earlier. I'm scoring it at 5 1/2 to create a top folding card base. And then I decided to add one more pattern paper. So I cut down a narrow strip of that polka dot metallic paper. And I'm now adhering the larger piece of pattern paper directly onto the card front. And I'll press that down. I use some Tombow Extreme adhesive because it's a super strong adhesive. Then put some foam tape on the back of that narrow strip. And I use the grid on my grid mat here to help me align this large piece all the way down the front of the card and have it be perfectly straight. Then put some foam tape on the back of that greeting area and pressed it down onto the card. So this is the completed card, the first card for this video. I'm moving on to the second, and I'm actually going to cut down that cream cardstock that I used for the greeting on the first card, and I've cut that down to create a card base, and I'm scoring it at 5.5 to create another top folding card. I'm going to do some stamping directly onto the card front, and those stamped images are going to go off the edge. So I'm putting down some grid paper just to keep my work surface clean. And then I'm taking 2 of those long brush stroke images from the stamp set, and I'm going to be stamping in 3 different colors of ink. This first color is soft navy, and then I'm going to use Rosy Cheeks, which is that pink color I used on the first card. And I'm going to switch stamps for this. This is just a little bit of a more narrow brush stroke stamp. And I'll stamp that down. And then I'm going to bring in a third color, and this is one of the pink colors that I was considering, and this is pale blush pink. That's what it's called. And it's just a lighter, a little bit more yellow toned pink than the Rosy Cheeks. And once they dry back, they look really nice together. So I did some double stamping on the blue so I could get a lighter blue, and just stamped up on that grid paper. And then I went back to the first stamp that I used with the blue, and I was trying to clean off all of that blue ink. Sometimes it just stains the stamp and it's hard to avoid, and I wanted to clean it up really well. So I used the Simus Stamp Ultra Clean Stamp Dauber stamp cleaner, and I thought it was clean, but look how much comes off once I use that stamp cleaner. All of that extra ink came off the stamp. So if you have some stubborn stamps that just seem to stain and it's ruining your lighter ink stampings, try cleaning off that stamp with that Ultra Clean, and it works really, really well. So I'm going to stamp it in those lighter shades up near the top. And I'm going to add one more stamp on top here. I'm going to use the very lightest shade, which is that pale blush pink. And then I'm going to take the blue and I'm going to stamp the "You Are Loved" greeting from that stamp set. I'm also putting the heart from the stamp set on the other side of that block. And I'm going to stamp this heart 3 times, twice above the greeting and once below. I like to just have little images like this in uneven numbers, so 3 or 5 or 7. 3 or 5 are usually ones that I pick. So I had 3 little hearts. So that finishes the second card for today. You can pick up this card kit over at simonsthestamp.com, and if you want to subscribe and receive future kits, you'll get $5 off every kit that you purchase. So you'll want to check that out. Thanks so much for watching today, and I'll catch you guys very soon.